Good morning and welcome to the Gurun Transfer. I'm Charles.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Callum.
And today we will be deconstructing how the Australian media represents detainees in offshore detention centres.
We believe that detainees in detention centres are portrayed as vulnerable and weak. Also, they are displayed in the media as if they have no capacity to help themselves, and therefore they are our responsibility to look after themselves.
Mass media and forms of communication, such as posters and magazines, manipulate viewers into believing specific ideologies and society's views. This means that many opinions are not authentic, as they originated and were changed by the media. However, at the same time, the global community does have the leniency against media. If there is a new craze or specific trend, the media will most likely report subjectively and objectively in different streams.
The media has reported very effusively about the problems of detainees in detention centres throughout the past years. The media's purpose is to inform the public on current events regarding the topic of refugees, to give the opinions and facts of the subject. The media has a very specific audience and it caters to people interested in politics and affairs. This is a wide audience and can vary from different ages. Context in the media can create different images and portray how the refugees feel in Manus Island and Nauru Island. Information in the media is important to topics such as the refugee crisis. This lets people know the important side of the subject. Photography and images in the media can add an extra level of depth and effect.
A stereotype is a generalization. For example, a stereotype for refugees is that they are all terrorists and mean harm. These accusations are all wrong. Take this advertisement, for example. It refers to the qualities a stereotype of this form would have, and then contradicts it, and then says, "I am not what you think I am." This campaign is to try and kill this stereotype.
Another stereotype is that refugees are all immoral. There are good people in every culture. However, the refugees' cause has not yet been helped by the mass raping episode in Germany and increase in rape in Sweden. According to Leaky Boats and the Department of Public Relations in Australia, they are not allowed to release any information to humanise refugees. Under the Australian Border Patrol Act, it is a criminal offence punishable by imprisonment of up to 2 years to reveal to the media anything that happens in detention centres. ABC News 2015. This helps alienate the refugees. The Manus Island authorities are blaming the rise in crime and social disorder on the refugees released from the detention centre. The post on Facebook also portrays the refugees as people who seek havoc and chaos.
The last commonly occurring stereotype is that refugees are vulnerable. In the Sydney Morning Herald, an article appeared in which the paper exposed rampant violence within the detention centres. Allegedly, it was the staff who were being violent. The refugees are depicted as vulnerable and weak by the media. After all, the definition of a refugee is a person who has been forced to leave their own country in order to escape war, persecution, or natural disaster. This particular stereotype is somewhat correct. However, saying all refugees are evil or are terrorists is a completely prejudiced statement. Take this scene from the news, for example.
It's like dying. It's waiting for dying.
Samuel is one of 37 babies born to asylum seeker parents in Australia.
Naomi is a refugee who has had her son in Australia and is under threats of being sent to the detention centre, Nauru. She is pleading to stay in Australia, but technically her baby is Australian born. She explains it as it is waiting to die. In this segment, she sounds vulnerable and weak, just as the media depicts it.
There are many films and documentaries on the topic of refugees in detention centres. A good documentary is Leaky Boats. Being aired by ABC, it is a typically well-trusted source, as it is a government organisation. The video talks about how Australian politicians have been inconsiderate and have dismissed the seriousness of this problem by sending them to refugee centres.
In the video on SBS, on detention centres, you can hear a child screaming in the background of an interview with a woman in a detention centre. This is making the audience believe that the conditions in the detention centers are terrible, making the audience empowered at how badly they're being treated.
The mass media changes its representations of refugees because of multiple factors. In different cultural attitudes, people have different perspectives on how they should be treated, causing the media to show only what they want to hear, as it will sell more papers. Refugees have a massive amount of media regulation. In the beginning of the refugee problem in Australia, there was to be no information to be released to the media. Whereas beforehand, there had always been a large amount of flowing information from the Department of Public Relations. Since the refugees were humanized, there has been a large amount of powerful advertisements, humanizing the refugees and making them seem vulnerable and defenseless. Media ownership, when dominated by a few films, can persuade people to think of refugees in a certain light, making manipulating the audience very easy.
The media represents refugees as helpless and vulnerable, to tell people of the horrors of a refugee camp. In doing so, playing the sympathies of the audiences. The stereotypes of the refugees differ for each person, but consist of terrorists and teary-eyed people behind barbed wire. The media plays the moral values card of looking after the refugees to their advantage, manipulating the views of the people with lines like, "Think of the children." The general audience is passively taking in this information because they like eating up stories of scandals inside detention centers. Overall, the media changed its original stance of the refugees being terrorists to being vulnerable, helpless people. The portrayal of refugees in detention centers is that they are helpless people running from untold threats from their countries of origin.
This has been Callan,
Charles,
And Sam,
and thank you for watching
the Guru Transfer.